My name is Amelia Bennett, and I'm 29 years old. 2 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I found my sister Haley's name in my fiancé Jason's phone. Something in my gut told me to check their messages. My hands trembled as I scrolled through texts that destroyed everything I thought I knew about the two people I loved most. My perfect white dress suddenly felt like it was suffocating me. I never thought my perfect day would turn into the worst nightmare of my life. Before I tell you how my wedding day unraveled, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to follow my journey from heartbreak to healing. I'd always been the responsible one. Growing up in suburban Detroit, I was the daughter who brought home straight A's, who never missed curfew, who had a 10-year plan before I even started high school. My parents had such high hopes for me, and I never wanted to disappoint them. I worked my way through college at the University of Michigan, double majoring in business and communications, and landed a marketing job in Chicago right after graduation. By 29, I'd worked my way up to marketing executive at one of Chicago's top advertising firms. I had the downtown apartment, the circle of ambitious friends, the wardrobe of blazers and heels. On paper, my life looked perfect, but something was missing. That changed the night I met Jason Taylor. It was at a charity gala for children's literacy. I was there representing my firm, which had sponsored the event. Jason was at a table with some financial industry people. He worked as a financial advisor at a prestigious firm downtown. Our eyes met across the room in that cliché way you think only happens in movies. He was tall with dark hair and the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he approached me at the bar and introduced himself, I felt an instant connection. "Let me guess," he'd said, "you're the smartest person at your company, but you're too humble to admit it." I laughed, surprised by his directness. "And you're the kind of guy who thinks he can read people at first glance?" "Only the interesting ones," he replied. Our first date was 2 days later, dinner at a small Italian restaurant followed by a walk along Lake Michigan. By the end of the night, I knew this was different from any relationship I'd had before. Jason was ambitious and charming, but also thoughtful. He remembered small details I mentioned in passing. He made elaborate plans for our dates. He sent flowers to my office just because it was Tuesday. Within 6 months, we were living together in my apartment. At 1 year, he proposed during a weekend trip to Traverse City with a vintage diamond ring that was exactly my taste. I said yes without hesitation. Jason felt like home to me, like the missing piece I hadn't realized I was searching for. The only complicated part of my perfect new life was my sister Haley. Haley was 3 years younger than me, and we had a relationship that could generously be described as complex. Growing up, we were constantly pitted against each other, sometimes by our parents, sometimes by our own insecurities. Where I was studious and careful, Haley was spontaneous and bold. She got the artistic talent. I got the academic focus. She was our father's favorite. I was our mother's. The competition between us intensified when our parents divorced during my senior year of high school. Suddenly, we were shuttling between two homes, both of us desperate for stability and attention during those weekly transitions. I responded by becoming even more self-sufficient. Haley acted out, her grades slipping as she threw herself into the party scene. After I left for college, things between us grew distant. We'd see each other at holidays and family events, maintaining a polite but superficial relationship. It wasn't until Haley followed me to Chicago 3 years ago that we began rebuilding our relationship. She'd gotten a job as an event coordinator at a downtown hotel, and suddenly we were in the same city for the first time in years. Our adult relationship was a work in progress. Sometimes close, sometimes strained, but better than it had been. When Jason proposed, I asked Haley to be my maid of honor, hoping it would bring us even closer. She seemed genuinely thrilled for me, throwing herself into wedding planning with enthusiasm that surprised me. "You deserve this, Ames," she'd said when I asked her, using my childhood nickname. "I want to make this perfect for you." And she had been the perfect maid of honor. Organizing my bridal shower, arranging fittings, helping select floral arrangements. If there were moments when I caught a strange expression on her face, or times when she grew quiet when Jason entered the room, I dismissed them. Old habits die hard, and I'd spent a lifetime interpreting Haley's actions through a lens of competition. My best friend Kate noticed it first. She and I had been friends since college, and she was one of my bridesmaids. "Is everything okay with Haley?" she asked about 2 months before the wedding. We were at my final dress fitting, and Haley had just left early, claiming a work emergency. "What do you mean?" I asked, twirling in front of the mirror in my ivory lace gown. "I don't know. She seems off when Jason's around. Like she's putting on a performance." I shrugged it off. "That's just Haley being Haley. She's always been a little dramatic." "If you say so," Kate replied, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. There were other moments too. At the engagement party, I'd gone looking for Jason and found him and Haley in deep conversation on the restaurant's terrace. They'd sprung apart when I approached, both laughing a little too loudly. At Christmas, I noticed them exchanging glances during family dinner. Once, I came home early from work and thought I heard Haley's laugh from our bedroom, but when I called out, Jason appeared from his home office alone, saying he'd been on a work call. I dismissed each incident, burying any unease beneath wedding preparations. We'd chosen a beautiful lakeside resort in northern Michigan for the ceremony and reception. Both of us had Michigan roots, and we wanted something elegant but connected to our home state. Planning consumed my free time, selecting invitations, tasting cakes, coordinating with vendors. The night before our wedding, we had the rehearsal dinner at the resort's waterfront restaurant. Everyone seemed happy festive. My parents were even being civil to each other. Jason's family had welcomed me warmly. Haley gave a beautiful toast that brought tears to my eyes about how she'd always looked up to her big sister and how Jason was lucky to have found me. If her smile seemed a bit strained, I attributed it to the emotion of the moment. That night, in our separate rooms, Jason had insisted on following tradition. He called to wish me sweet dreams. "Tomorrow at this time, you'll be Mrs. Taylor," he said. "I can't wait to start our life together." I fell asleep feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. The morning of the wedding dawned sunny and perfect. The bridal suite was buzzing with activity, my mother, Kate, and the other bridesmaids all getting their hair and makeup done while champagne flowed freely. The only person missing was Haley. "Has anyone heard from my sister?" I asked, checking my phone again. She was supposed to be here an hour ago for her hair appointment. My mother frowned. "I'll try calling her again." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Can't find my vows. Did I leave them in your suite last night?" I remembered he'd stopped by briefly to drop off my wedding gift. "I'll check," I replied. As I was searching, Jason called. "Any luck?" "Still looking," I said. "But your phone is here. Did you know that?" "Oh, thank God," he replied. "I've been looking everywhere for it. Can you check if my vows are saved in the Notes app?" "Then maybe you could text them to me." "Sure, no problem." Little did I know that simple request would change the course of my entire life. I found Jason's phone on the side table where he must have left it the night before. It was still charged, and I easily bypassed his passcode, 1215, my birthday, to look for his vows. I opened the Notes app but didn't see anything wedding-related. Maybe he'd sent them to himself in a text, I thought, opening his messages. That's when I saw it. Haley's name near the top of his recent conversations. There was nothing unusual about them texting. She was my maid of honor, after all. They'd had to coordinate various wedding details. Still, something made me pause. Maybe it was the timing, with Haley mysteriously absent from the bridal suite. Maybe it was all those small moments of unease I'd pushed aside. Whatever the reason, I tapped on their conversation. The most recent exchange was from last night, after the rehearsal dinner. Jason: "Are you sure about tomorrow?" Haley: "No, but it's too late now. We can talk after they leave for the honeymoon." Jason: "I hate this. Meet me by the boathouse in 20. Haley: "Can't. Mom's watching me like a hawk. Tomorrow will be hell." My heart began to pound. This could mean anything, I told myself. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe Haley was having cold feet about her speech. I scrolled up further, through conversations about seating arrangements and suit fittings. Nothing seemed amiss until I reached messages from 3 months ago, around the time of Jason's bachelor party weekend. Haley, I can't stop thinking about last night. Jason, me neither. What are we doing? Haley, I don't know. But I've never felt this way before. Jason, it's crazy, right? But when we're together. Haley, I know. It's always been there, I think. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I continued scrolling, each message confirming what I didn't want to believe. They'd been meeting secretly for months, at hotels when Jason claimed to be on business trips, at our apartment when I worked late. There were references to moments stolen during wedding planning, right under my nose. And then came the photos. Nothing explicit, but intimate nonetheless. Haley in what appeared to be a hotel bed, sheets pulled up, smiling at the camera with tousled hair. Jason shirtless, sending her a mirror selfie with the caption, "Thinking of you." My sister and my fiancé betraying me in the most fundamental way possible. The final proof came in a message from just 2 weeks ago. Jason, sometimes I think we should just tell her. Haley, after the wedding. I can't destroy her big day. Jason, you're right. After they've paid for everything. It would be cruel otherwise. Haley, exactly. We'll find the right time after they get back. She deserves one perfect day. They were planning to continue their affair and tell me afterward. After my parents had spent thousands on a wedding. After I had committed my life to a man who was sleeping with my sister. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the phone, my wedding dress pulled around me like a deflated dream. The suite bustled with activity around me. My mother on the phone trying to locate Haley, bridesmaids taking selfies, the makeup artist asking if I wanted another touch-up. I felt disconnected from my body, like I was floating above the scene, watching someone else's life implode. My hands trembled. Nausea rose in my throat. Tears welled, threatening to ruin the flawless makeup I'd sat still for an hour to perfect. Kate noticed first. She'd always been attuned to my moods, and she saw the color drain from my face. Amelia? What's wrong? She crossed the room, champagne flute still in hand. I couldn't speak. I simply turned the phone toward her. She set her glass down and took it, her expression changing from confusion to shock as she scrolled. "Oh my God," she whispered, sinking onto the ottoman beside me. "Amelia, I'm so sorry." "You were right," I managed to say, my voice hollow. "You noticed something was off with Haley. I should have listened." Kate put her arm around me. I had no idea it was this. I thought maybe she was jealous or... She is jealous, I said bitterly. She always has been. But this is beyond anything I could have imagined. Kate continued reading through the messages, her expression growing, increasingly horrified. "That absolute bastard," she muttered. "And your own sister." "I think I'm going to be sick," I said, suddenly standing. I barely made it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of my stomach. Champagne and nerves, and now this devastating betrayal. When I emerged, shaky and pale, Kate was waiting with a cold washcloth and a glass of water. "What do you want to do?" she asked quietly. "The ceremony is in 2 hours. Guests will be arriving soon." The reality of my situation crashed down on me. 200 people were about to witness either my marriage to a man who'd been cheating with my sister or the public cancellation of a wedding they'd traveled to attend. "I need to talk to them," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Separately. I need to hear them say it." Kate nodded. "I'll find Haley. She can't have gone far." "And Jason?" I asked, looking down at his phone in my hand. As if on cue, it buzzed with an incoming call, Jason's name flashing on the screen. I declined it. "One thing at a time," Kate said gently. "Let me find Haley first." As Kate left, my mother returned to the suite, frustration evident on her face. "Still no answer from your sister." "This is so irresponsible of her, today of all days." She stopped abruptly, finally noticing my state. "Amelia? Sweetheart, what's happened?" I took a deep breath. How could I tell my mother that both her daughters had betrayed her trust? That the wedding she'd spent a year helping me plan was about to implode? "Mom," I said, my voice breaking, "I need to show you something." My mother's reaction moved through shock to disbelief to a cold, contained fury I'd rarely seen in her. She was the one who'd raised us to value loyalty above all else, who'd instilled in us that family was sacred even through the messiest parts of her divorce from my father. "Where is your sister?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm after reading enough of the messages to understand what was happening. "Kate went to find her," I replied, sitting numbly in my wedding gown, a mockery of the happy day that should have been unfolding. My mother began pacing the suite, wedding planner mode activated despite her evident distress. "We need to talk to the venue coordinator. The flowers, the caterers, the photographer, everything needs to be..." "Mom," I interrupted, "I haven't decided what I'm doing yet." She stopped pacing and stared at me in disbelief. "Amelia Rose Bennett. You cannot possibly be considering going through with this wedding." "Of course not," I said quickly. "But I need to confront them first. I need to hear it from them." My mother's expression softened slightly. "Oh, sweetheart." She sat beside me, careful not to wrinkle my dress, a ridiculous concern given the circumstances. "Some betrayals don't require further confirmation." Jason's phone buzzed again in my hand. 3 missed calls from him now and a text, "Did you find my vows? Ceremony's getting close." The sheer audacity of it sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. He was still planning to stand at the altar and pledge his love and fidelity to me, hours after texting my sister about their affair. A soft knock at the door preceded Kate's return, with Haley beside her. My sister looked immaculate in her maid of honor dress, a dusty rose that complemented her fair skin and dark hair. The dress I'd chosen for her, at fittings we'd attended together, laughing and bonding like the sisters I thought we were becoming again. "Amelia?" Haley's voice was uncertain as she took in the scene, me in my wedding dress with mascara-stained cheeks, our mother standing protectively nearby, Kate's grim expression. "What's going on? Is the wedding delayed?" The casual deception in her tone snapped something in me. I stood, Jason's phone clutched in my hand. "You tell me, Haley," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Is the wedding delayed? Or were you planning to stand beside me while I married the man you've been sleeping with?" Her face went white, then red. For a moment, she seemed about to deny it, her mouth opening with what would surely be another lie. Then her eyes fell on the phone in my hand, and her shoulders slumped. "How did you find out?" she whispered. "Jason left his phone here last night," I said. "He asked me to find his vows in his notes app. I found something else instead." My mother made a small, pained sound. Haley's eyes darted to her, then back to me. "Amelia, she began, but I cut her off." "How long, Haley?" The texts I saw go back 3 months, but somehow I doubt that's when it started. Haley sank onto the nearest chair, her bridesmaid bouquet still clutched absurdly in her hands. "It started during the bachelor and bachelorette weekend," she admitted quietly. "We were both in Vegas, different hotels, but we ran into each other at a club. I was drunk, he was drunk. That was 6 months ago," I said flatly. She nodded miserably. "It was supposed to be a one-time mistake. We agreed to never speak of it again, to forget it happened. But then what?" My mother's voice was like ice. "Then we couldn't stop," Haley whispered. "We tried. God, Amelia, we tried to end it so many times. But there was this connection between us that..." "Don't you dare," I interrupted, anger finally breaking through my shock. "Don't you dare try to romanticize this betrayal." Tears spilled down Haley's cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I've always been second best to you. Second in school, second with Mom, second with Dad even though he pretends otherwise. For once in my life, I was someone's first choice. His first choice." I laughed bitterly. "He proposed to me, Haley. He was planning to marry me today. Whatever he told you was a lie. We were going to tell you after the honeymoon," she said, confirming the texts I'd read. "We didn't want to ruin the wedding after everyone had spent so much money and traveled so far." "How considerate of you both," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. A commotion outside the door interrupted us, followed by insistent knocking. "Amelia!" Jason's voice. "What's going on? Everyone's saying there's a problem with the wedding." My mother moved toward the door, fury in every line of her body, but I held up my hand to stop her. "Let him in," I said. "I want to hear what he has to say." Kate opened the door, her expression pure contempt as she faced Jason. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his face a mask of confusion that dropped the instant he saw Haley sitting in her bridesmaid dress, tears streaming down her face. "What's she doing here?" he asked, attempting confusion. "Shouldn't she be getting her hair done or something?" I held up his phone. "Stop lying, Jason. I know everything." He paled visibly, eyes darting between the phone, me, and Haley. For a long moment, he seemed unable to form words. "Amelia," he finally said, stepping toward me. "Baby, I can explain, don't call me that," I snapped. "And don't come any closer." He stopped, hands raised placatingly. "It's not what you think." "Really?" I scrolled through his phone theatrically. So these texts about meeting in hotels while I was working late, about continuing your relationship after our honeymoon, about how you can't help the connection between you, that's all what? A book club discussion. "It was a mistake," he said, his voice breaking. I got cold feet about the wedding. Haley was there. She understood what I was going through. One thing led to another, but it didn't mean anything. Haley's head snapped up. "It didn't mean anything," she repeated incredulously. "Not helping, Haley," my mother muttered. Jason ran a hand through his perfect hair, disheveling it. "Amelia, please. I love you." What happened with Haley it was just physical. It wasn't real. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" I asked. "I made a terrible mistake," he continued desperately. "But we can work through this. We can get counseling, take some time." "Like you did with Melissa?" Kate interjected. Everyone turned to look at her. "Your ex-girlfriend," Kate clarified, arms crossed. "The one you were with before Amelia. I ran into her brother last month at a work event." "Interesting story. He told me about why you two broke up. Something about you sleeping with her cousin." Jason's face confirmed it before he could stammer out a denial. I felt a fresh wave of betrayal wash over me. This wasn't just a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a pattern. "Get out," I said quietly. "Amelia, please get out." I screamed, my composure finally shattering completely. "Get out of my sight, get out of my life. The wedding is off." The door opened again, revealing the wedding planner's concerned face. "Is everything all right? The musicians are asking if they should begin seating music, and the photographer needs to know where you want pre-ceremony photos." The absurd normalcy of her questions against the backdrop of my imploding life pushed me over the edge. I began to laugh, a high, slightly hysterical sound that quickly dissolved into sobs. Through my tears, I saw the four people in the room staring at me: Kate with compassion, my mother with protective rage, Haley with guilt and misery, and Jason with the desperate expression of a man watching his carefully constructed life crumble. "The wedding," I managed to say through my tears, "is cancelled." In the shocked silence that followed my declaration, I felt a strange sense of clarity emerge through the pain. Standing there in my custom-designed wedding gown, surrounded by the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of my life, I suddenly knew with absolute certainty what I needed to do. "I deserve better than this," I said, my voice stronger. "I deserve better than a man who would betray me with my own sister. And I deserve better than a sister who would betray me with the man I loved." My mother stepped forward, placing a protective arm around my shoulders. "Of course you do, sweetheart." Jason made one last desperate attempt. "Amelia, please, we can postpone. Take some time to work through this." "There is nothing to work through," I interrupted. "This isn't a speed bump, Jason. This is a concrete wall we've crashed into at full speed. We're done." The wedding planner, finally grasping the situation, cleared her throat awkwardly. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I need to know what to tell the guests. They're already arriving." The practical question cut through the emotional intensity of the moment. 200 people were gathering at the lakeside ceremony site, unaware that there would be no vows exchanged today. "I'll handle the announcement," my mother said decisively. "No." The deep voice from the doorway belonged to my father, who must have arrived while we were arguing. "I'll do it." Despite their difficult divorce, my parents had maintained civility for our sakes. Now, seeing my father's face transform from confusion to understanding as he took in the scene, I felt a rush of gratitude for his presence. "Dad," I managed, fresh tears springing to my eyes. He crossed the room in 3 strides, enveloping me in a hug that felt like the first safe place I'd encountered in hours. Over his shoulder, I saw Haley shrink back, aware of how deeply she'd disappointed him too. "I got a text from your mother," he explained, releasing me to glare at Jason, who had the good sense to look terrified. "Said there was an emergency with the wedding." I see she wasn't exaggerating. I quickly filled him in on what had happened, watching his expression darken with each detail. "I'll tell the guests," he repeated when I'd finished. "No details necessary. Just that the wedding has been canceled due to circumstances beyond our control." "The financial loss," Jason began, "is the least of what you deserve," my father cut him off coldly. "Consider yourself lucky if I don't break your jaw once the guests have left." "I'll help coordinate," Kate said, pulling out her phone. "I'll text the bridesmaids to help manage things." Jason's parents appeared in the doorway next, confusion evident on their faces. "Jason? What's going on?" his mother asked. "Reverend Williams is asking if we're delaying the start time." I watched understanding dawn on their faces as they took in the tableau before them, Jason standing apart, my tear-streaked face, the tense postures of everyone in the room. "What have you done?" his father asked quietly, and I realized he was addressing Jason, not me. Jason's mother crossed to me, genuine distress in her eyes. "Amelia, what's happened?" I couldn't bring myself to explain it again. Kate stepped in, quietly informing them of their son's betrayal while I turned away, unable to bear the additional humiliation of watching their reaction. "We'll help with the guests," Jason's father said after a stunned silence, his voice tight with controlled anger. "And then we're taking our son home to have a very serious conversation." Jason's mother nodded, shock and embarrassment warring on her face. "Amelia, I don't know what to say." "I'm so sorry." They left, practically dragging Jason with them. Haley remained, looking small and lost in her beautiful dress. "You need to leave too," my mother told her, ice in her voice. "We'll discuss this later as a family, but right now I can't even look at you." Haley nodded miserably, gathering her things. At the door, she paused. "Amelia, I said. Just don't." After she left, the room felt suddenly empty. My father went to make the announcement to the guests. Kate began calling the other bridesmaids. My mother spoke quietly with the wedding planner about the logistics of cancellation. And I stood in the middle of it all, still wearing a $30,000 wedding dress that now symbolized nothing but betrayal and public humiliation. "I need to get out of this dress," I said to no one in particular. Kate heard me and came over, helping me to the bedroom portion of the suite. With gentle hands, she unfastened the dozens of tiny buttons down my back, helped me step out of the layers of silk and lace, and handed me a robe. As I removed the dress, I felt like I was shedding more than just fabric. I was removing the future I'd planned, the life I'd thought I was going to have. The sensation was both devastating and strangely liberating. Through the walls, I could faintly hear my father's voice addressing the assembled guests. I couldn't make out his words, but his tone carried authority and dignity. I was grateful that he was handling this part for me. I couldn't have faced that crowd. "People are already sending messages," Kate said, glancing at my phone which had been buzzing continuously. "Word spreads fast." I nodded but couldn't bring myself to look at the texts. The thought of the gossip, the speculation, the pity, it was overwhelming. A knock at the door revealed the hotel manager, his expression professionally sympathetic. "Miss Bennett, I wanted to personally express how sorry we are about the situation," he said. "We've arranged a private exit for you through our service area, and we've prepared a suite on the other side of the property if you'd prefer not to stay in the bridal suite tonight." His kindness nearly undid me again. "Thank you," I managed. "That's very thoughtful. I've also instructed the staff to pack up the gifts and personal items from the reception area. They'll be stored securely until you decide what you'd like done with them." Gifts. Another aspect I hadn't considered. Hundreds of wrapped presents that would now need to be returned. After the manager left, I became aware of a commotion in the hallway. Jason's brother Michael was speaking with Kate at the door. "I just want to check on her," he was saying. "Make sure she's okay." To my surprise, I found myself calling out, "It's fine, Kate. Let him in." Michael had always been the more serious of the Taylor brothers, more thoughtful, less flashy. He entered cautiously, his concern evident. "Amelia, I'm so sorry," he said. I had no idea Jason was. I mean, I knew something was off recently, but I never imagined. "Neither did I said with a hollow laugh. Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so similar to his brother's that it made my heart ache. I should have said something when I noticed him acting strange. Or when I saw how he was with Haley at the engagement party. I just thought they were becoming friends because of the wedding planning. "You noticed something between them at the engagement party?" I asked sharply. Michael looked uncomfortable. "Just something in the way they were talking. It reminded me of how he was with," he stopped abruptly. "With Melissa's cousin, I finished for him," Kate told me. He nodded, grimacing. "Jason has always had issues with commitment. With boundaries. Our parents' marriage was pretty dysfunctional, though they hide it well in public. But that's no excuse for what he did to you." It was strange to be receiving this insight now, when it was too late to matter. But it did help to know that Jason's betrayal wasn't about me or what I lacked, it was about something broken in him. "Thank you for checking on me," I said sincerely. "If there's anything I can do," he offered. "Actually," I said, "could you make sure Jason doesn't try to contact me again today? I can't handle seeing him right now." "Consider it done," Michael promised. "He's already left with our parents, but I'll make sure he stays away." After Michael left, my phone buzzed with yet another text, this one from Jason. "Please let me explain. I love you. We can fix this." I handed the phone to Kate. "Can you deal with this? Block him, or just turn it off? I can't look at it anymore." "Absolutely," she said, taking the phone and immediately powering it down. My father returned, his expression grim but satisfied. "It's done. Most people are leaving now. A few have asked to speak with you, but I've told them you're not available." "Thank you, Dad," I said, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontations was wearing off, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. "What do you want to do now, sweetheart?" my mother asked gently. "We can go home, get a different hotel, whatever you need." What I needed was to rewind time, to go back to yesterday when I still believed in the love story I thought I was living. But since that was impossible, "I think I'll take the hotel manager up on his offer of a different suite," I said. "I just want to sleep. Tomorrow we can figure out everything else." My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. "I'll stay with you," Kate offered immediately. I nodded gratefully. The thought of being alone with my thoughts was unbearable. As we prepared to leave through the hotel's service exit, avoiding the departing guests, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Hair and makeup still perfect, ready for a wedding that would never happen. Eyes hollow with shock and betrayal. The beginning of the rest of my life, just not the beginning I had planned. The days following what should have been my wedding unfolded in a blur of practical tasks that barely masked the emotional devastation beneath. Returning to my Chicago apartment felt like entering a museum of a life that no longer existed. Jason's running shoes by the door, his favorite coffee mug in the sink, his scent lingering on the sheets I immediately stripped from our bed. Kate stayed with me that first week, sleeping on my couch and running interference with the outside world. She helped me box up Jason's belongings, arranging for his brother Michael to collect them when I wasn't home. She fielded calls from concerned friends and family. She deleted the social media apps from my phone after I made the mistake of checking Instagram and finding my feed flooded with pitying messages. "You don't need to see any of this right now," she said firmly, tapping through my phone settings. "Focus on yourself, not what other people are saying." I took 2 weeks off work, something I'd never done before. My boss was understanding, having been through a painful divorce herself. "Take the time you need," she told me. "The job will be here when you're ready." In that strange limbo time, I oscillated between numb shock and searing pain. Simple tasks became monumental. Showering, eating, even getting out of bed required conscious effort. Sleep was elusive, my mind replaying scenes from the wedding day, from my relationship with Jason, from my childhood with Haley, searching for signs I'd missed, for the moment everything went wrong. A week after the non-wedding, I made my first appointment with a therapist. Dr. Levine was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a direct manner that cut through my defenses. "You've experienced multiple betrayals," she told me in that first session. "From the two people closest to you. It's natural to feel destabilized, to question your judgment, to wonder what was real." "I keep thinking I should have known," I admitted, twisting the tissue in my hands. "There were signs." "Hindsight creates patterns that weren't visible in the moment," she replied. "Don't punish yourself for trusting the people you loved." Those sessions became an anchor in the stormy weeks that followed. Twice a week, I would sit in Dr. Levine's office and gradually unravel the complex web of emotions. The anger, the grief, the humiliation, and beneath it all, a profound sense of loss that went beyond just losing Jason. I had lost my faith in my own perceptions, my trust in family bonds, my carefully planned future. Jason continued his attempts to contact me, desperate voicemails, emails, even letters delivered to my apartment. Each one followed the same pattern: passionate declarations of love, minimization of his betrayal, a mistake, meaningless, and promises to change. I deleted them all unread after the first few. His persistence only ended when my father, apparently, paid him a visit. My dad never told me exactly what was said, but the messages stopped immediately afterward. Haley was another matter. My mother had apparently taken her to task in what she described as the most difficult conversation of my life, but she also urged me to eventually speak with my sister. "Not for her sake," my mother clarified during one of her daily check-in calls. "For yours. So you can move forward without this poisoning your life." But I wasn't ready. The betrayal from Haley cut even deeper than Jason's in some ways. Sisters were supposed to be there for each other, to protect each other. Instead, she had deliberately hurt me in the most profound way possible. Through mutual friends, I learned that Jason and Haley had continued seeing each other briefly after the wedding debacle, a final twist of the knife that confirmed I'd made the right decision. That relationship imploded within weeks, surprising no one except perhaps them. About 3 weeks after the wedding, I was organizing the stack of gift returns I'd been avoiding when there was a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Jason's sister Eliza, shifting nervously in the hallway. I hesitated, then opened the door. Eliza and I had gotten along well during my relationship with Jason, but I hadn't heard from her since the wedding. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced," she said. "I tried calling, but..." "I've been screening calls," I admitted. "Come in." She entered cautiously, taking in the half-packed boxes and reorganized furniture, all evidence of my attempts to reclaim my space. "I wanted to check on you," she said, declining my offer of tea. "And to tell you how sorry I am about what Jason did. What they both did." "Thank you," I said, the words feeling inadequate. Eliza twisted her hands together. "There's something else. Something I think you should know." She took a deep breath. "This isn't the first time Jason has done something like this." "I know about Melissa and her cousin," I said. "It's more than that," Eliza continued. "There was a pattern with Jason even before Melissa. In college, with his roommate's girlfriend. At his first job, with a married coworker." She looked down. "Our family, we enabled it. Made excuses. Cleaned up his messes. I'm ashamed that we didn't tell you, that we let it happen again." Her confession hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just Jason and Haley who had deceived me, it was an entire family who had known his character and stayed silent. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice tight. "Because you deserve to know it wasn't your fault," she said simply. "And because I'm done protecting my brother from the consequences of his actions." After Eliza left, I had my first major breakdown. Alone in my apartment, I slid down the wall to the floor and sobbed until I couldn't breathe, great heaving cries that felt ripped from the center of my being. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen shut, until there seemed to be no tears left in my body. Then I dragged myself into the shower, sat on the floor under the hot spray, and continued crying. It was rock bottom. Curled up in the bathtub, water running cold, I realized I had a choice to make. I could let this betrayal define me, shape my future relationships, turn me bitter and mistrustful. Or I could choose to heal, however long and painful that process might be. When Kate found me, she still had a key and checked in daily. I was wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, making a list. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing the notepad. "Steps to reclaim my life," I said, my voice hoarse from crying but steady. "Starting with finding a new apartment. I can't heal in a space filled with memories of him." Kate's relief was palpable. She'd been worried about me, I knew, afraid I'd get stuck in the quicksand of grief and betrayal. "Count me in," she said, grabbing a pen to add her own suggestions to my list. Operation Amelia 2.0 is officially underway. That night, for the first time since the wedding day, I slept deeply and without dreams. 1 month after my canceled wedding, I signed a lease on a new apartment in a different neighborhood. It was smaller than the place I'd shared with Jason, but it had abundant natural light and no memories lurking in its corners. Kate and a few other close friends helped me move, turning what could have been a melancholy day into something closer to a celebration, complete with pizza, wine, and a ceremonial burning of the last few items Jason had left behind. "To new beginnings," my friend Derek toasted, raising his plastic cup. "And to remembering who you were before him." That phrase stuck with me. Who had I been before Jason? Before I'd shaped my life around our relationship, our plans, our future? I'd lost touch with parts of myself, hobbies abandoned for lack of time, friendships that had faded as I focused on my relationship, dreams I'd modified to accommodate our joint path. In therapy, Dr. Levine encouraged me to reconnect with these discarded pieces of my identity. "Think of this as an opportunity," she suggested. "A chance to rediscover yourself without the constraints of someone else's expectations." I began small. I dug my camera out of storage. Photography had been a passion in college that I'd let slide. I signed up for a weekend pottery class I'd always been curious about. I rejoined my old book club that met on Thursdays, a night I'd previously reserved for dinner with Jason. My return to work provided another anchor. I'd built my career through determination and skill, and that part of my identity remained intact despite the personal earthquake I'd experienced. My colleagues were supportive without being intrusive, and the familiar challenges of my job gave me purpose during daytime hours when my mind might otherwise have wandered to darker places. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, I felt the first real shift in my healing. I was having dinner with Kate when she asked how I was doing, a question I'd been answering with some variation of surviving for months. "I'm okay," I said, surprising myself with the realization that I meant it. Not great, not healed, but okay. Like I can see a future where this isn't the defining event of my life. Kate raised her glass. "That's huge, Ames. I'm proud of you." That same week at Dr. Levine's suggestion, I created an online dating profile. Not to find someone new, she clarified, but to remind yourself that your romantic life didn't end with Jason. That there are possibilities ahead. My first date was a disaster. A man who spent 2 hours talking about his cryptocurrency investments while barely asking me a single question. But it was also strangely liberating. I'd survived a public wedding cancellation and heartbreaking betrayal. An awkward date with a self-absorbed stranger barely registered on my emotional Richter scale. 6 months post-non-wedding, I attended a weekend retreat for women healing from relationship trauma. In the mountains of Wisconsin, surrounded by strangers with their own stories of betrayal and loss, I found unexpected comfort. During a journaling exercise, I had a breakthrough about patterns in my relationship with Haley that had set the stage for what happened. I was always the responsible one, the achiever, I wrote. She was the wild one, the rebel. We played these roles our whole lives, even as adults. I see now how that dynamic created a perfect storm with Jason, me trusting implicitly, her acting impulsively, both of us locked in our childhood patterns. Understanding didn't equal forgiveness, but it helped me contextualize what had happened. It wasn't just about Jason's character flaws or Haley's selfishness. It was about family dynamics that had been brewing for decades. I began writing letters I never intended to send to Jason, to Haley, to my parents, even to myself. I poured out my anger, my grief, my disillusionment. With each letter, I felt a little lighter, a little more free from the emotional tangle that had defined the past months. The one-year anniversary of my canceled wedding arrived on a beautiful June day, eerily similar to the weather on that fateful morning. I dreaded this milestone, worried it would trigger a setback in my healing. Instead, I woke up feeling reflective, but not devastated. That same week, I learned through the grapevine that Jason and Haley's relationship had imploded spectacularly months earlier. According to mutual friends, they'd tried to make it work after the wedding disaster, justifying their betrayal as some grand cosmic love story that was worth the pain they'd caused. Reality had proven otherwise. Apparently, they were toxic together, my friend Melissa, not Jason's ex, a different Melissa, reported. Fighting constantly, accusing each other of cheating. They finally had a huge public blow-up at Finnegan's pub. Jason left with a drink poured over his head. The news should have been satisfying, vindication that their connection had been nothing but selfish delusion. Instead, I felt oddly detached, as if hearing about characters in a movie I'd seen long ago. Does it bother you? Melissa asked carefully. I considered the question. No, I said, realizing it was true. Their story isn't my story anymore. My mother had been trying for months to broker peace between her daughters, a well-intentioned but misguided effort. During a tense phone call, I finally established clear boundaries. Mom, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not ready to have Haley in my life again, I explained. Maybe someday, but forcing a reconciliation now isn't healthy for either of us. Family is family, she protested. You can't avoid each other forever. Actually, I can, I replied calmly. Being related by blood doesn't entitle someone to a relationship with me, especially after what she did. My mother didn't bring it up again. As the second year after my non-wedding began, a surprising opportunity arose at work, a chance to lead a new branch of our marketing firm opening in New York. It would mean leaving Chicago, my support network, the life I'd rebuilt piece by careful piece. What do you think? I asked Dr. Levine in what had become monthly rather than weekly sessions. What do you think? She countered, in typical therapist fashion. I laughed. 2 years ago, I would have said no immediately. My whole life was here, Jason, our plans, our future. But now, I paused, considering. Now I'm curious about what might be waiting for me somewhere new. That sounds like your answer, she said with a smile. The decision to move felt simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating, a radical act of faith in myself and my future. My Chicago friends threw me a going-away party that doubled as a celebration of how far I'd come. Before leaving, I made one final pilgrimage, back to the lakeside resort where my wedding was supposed to have happened. I went alone, on a quiet weekday when I knew there would be no other events. The staff had changed. No one recognized me as the bride who never was. I walked down to the ceremony site by the water, now empty of chairs and flowers and expectations. Standing there, looking out at the gentle waves, I performed a private ritual of release, saying goodbye to the life I'd planned, the future I'd imagined, the pain I'd carried. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me, as steady and healing as the lake itself. Thank you, I whispered to no one and everyone, for the gift of starting over. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, my life in New York had taken shape in ways I never could have predicted. The marketing division I led had exceeded all growth projections, earning me a reputation as someone who could not only survive adversity but thrive because of it. My apartment in Brooklyn became a home, filled with photography I'd taken during weekend explorations of my new city, pottery pieces from classes I continued to attend, and furniture I'd selected for no one's taste but my own. Most surprisingly, I'd cautiously begun dating again, real dating this time, not the half-hearted attempts of my early healing period. I'd met Daniel, a professor of architecture, at a friend's dinner party. Our relationship developed slowly, built on a foundation of honest communication and careful trust. He knew my story. It was impossible to get close to me without learning it, but never made me feel defined by it. Everyone has a past, he said simply when I finally told him the full details one night, 6 months into our relationship. What matters is how it shapes you, not that it happened. With Daniel, I learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was courage. Each time I shared a fear, a boundary, a need, and was met with respect rather than manipulation, my capacity for trust expanded a little more. The Christmas after I moved to New York marked the first family holiday I'd attended since the wedding disaster. My mother had finally stopped pushing for reconciliation, accepting that my relationship with Haley might never return to what it once was. But when she called to invite me home for the holidays, she mentioned gently that Haley would be there. "It's your decision entirely," she said. "No pressure. We can arrange different days if that's easier." I surprised myself by saying, "No, it's okay. I can handle seeing her." That Christmas dinner was undeniably tense. Haley looked different, her hair shorter, her face thinner, her usual confidence dimmed. Our interactions were polite but distant, both of us carefully navigating the minefield of our shared history. It was the day after Christmas when Haley asked if we could talk privately. We walked through our childhood neighborhood, snow crunching beneath our boots, familiar houses decorated for the holidays. "I've been in therapy," she began without preamble, "for almost 2 years now. Working on everything. Why I did what I did. My need for validation. My self-destructive patterns." I nodded but said nothing, waiting. "I know there's nothing I can say that will fix what I did to you," she continued. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or for things to go back to how they were. I just want you to know that I understand the depth of my betrayal, and I'm truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught, not sorry for the consequences. Sorry for the pain I caused you, which was unforgivable." Her words were clearly rehearsed, but nonetheless sincere. I considered them carefully before responding. "Thank you for saying that," I finally said. "I appreciate the apology, and I'm glad you're getting help." Are you doing okay?" she asked hesitantly. "Mom says you're doing well in New York." "I am," I confirmed. "It turns out there's life after betrayal. A good life, even." We walked in silence for a while longer before Haley spoke again. "Do you think we'll ever be able to have any kind of relationship again?" she asked, her voice small. I stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "I don't know, Haley. I really don't. What happened between us wasn't a simple fight or misunderstanding. You made countless deliberate choices to betray me in the most painful way possible." She flinched, but didn't argue. "Right now," I continued, "I can be civil at family gatherings. I can acknowledge your apology. I can even hope that you find happiness and healing. But trust? A close sisterly relationship? I don't know if that's possible." "I understand," she said, eyes downcast. "For what it's worth, I miss who we were becoming before everything." "So do I admitted. But we can't go backward." That conversation didn't magically repair our relationship, but it did create a framework for moving forward, with clear boundaries and realistic expectations on both sides. A few months later, I had an unexpected encounter that closed another chapter in my story. I was in Chicago for a conference and ran into Jason at a coffee shop near my old office. The sight of him was jarring, like seeing a character from a movie suddenly materialize in real life. He noticed me at the same moment, coffee cup freezing halfway to his lips. For a second, I thought he might leave to avoid the interaction. Instead, he approached my table. "Amelia," he said, his voice holding none of the desperate persuasion of his post-wedding communications. "You look well." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by my own calmness. "So do you." He asked if he could sit. After a moment's consideration, I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Our conversation was brief and surprisingly civil, surface-level updates about work, mutual acquaintances, the unusually warm spring. He had moved to Milwaukee, was working for a new firm. He didn't mention dating anyone, and I didn't volunteer information about Daniel. As he prepared to leave, he hesitated. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I truly am sorry for what I did to you. There's no excuse, and you deserved better." 2 years earlier, I had desperately needed to hear those words. Now, they were just words, meaningful but no longer necessary for my healing. Thank you for saying that, I said simply. Walking away from that chance meeting, I realized that Jason no longer held any power over my emotions, positive or negative. The man who had once been the center of my world was now just someone I used to know. The revelation was quietly triumphant. As I approached the third anniversary of what I now think of as the wedding that saved me, I can look back with perspective I once thought impossible. The betrayal that shattered my life became the catalyst for rebuilding it on a stronger foundation, one based on genuine self-knowledge, carefully considered choices, and relationships built on respect rather than need. I've learned that resilience isn't about avoiding pain but moving through it with purpose. I've discovered that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, but only with deserving people who demonstrate their trustworthiness through consistent actions, not just words. Most importantly, I've learned that no single event, not even the most dramatic, painful betrayal, defines who we are unless we allow it to. We always have the choice to create meaning from our suffering, to use it as a doorway to a more authentic life. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found those texts on Jason's phone that morning. Would I have married him, unaware of his true character? Would I have spent years in a marriage built on deception, possibly discovering the truth in even more devastating ways? Would I have continued to accept less than I deserved in the name of maintaining appearances? The wedding that never happened saved me from the life I never should have had. And for that unexpected gift, I've found a kind of gratitude that coexists peacefully with the memory of pain. What was your most significant life lesson that came from an unexpected or painful situation? Have you ever experienced a blessing in disguise that only revealed itself with time? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join me for more real-life journeys through challenge to transformation. Thank you for being part of my healing by listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the path we didn't choose becomes the greatest gift of all.